Hello again, YouTube. My name is Peter, and I'm an opinionated Star Trek nerd, here to give my 2 cents about the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. Now, cue the theme music. No, wait, sorry, that's copyrighted. Don't cue the theme music. So, my one-word review of this is underwhelming. Now, in case you're wondering exactly what sort of grain of salt to take what I'm saying with, I have liked Star Trek for pretty much as long as I can remember. Next Generation came out when I was around 3 years old, and I don't really remember much before that. And I've been a fan of Star Trek for most of my life. And when I heard new series coming out, I thought, great. Then I heard it was a prequel, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. And then I gave it a chance, and I was like, alright, I guess I'll continue to go with this, because why not? But I wasn't like, wow, this is really blowing me away. Now, I don't think it's a trivial fact that this is a prequel, because in Star Trek Discovery, the first 2 episodes set up what appears to be the central conflict of this coming season, which is a war with the Klingons. Now, the redesign of the Klingons, which many people found controversial, I basically think comes down to the fact that if they had shown Klingons as the audience had seen them before, and even non-Star Trek fans have probably absorbed what a Klingon looks like through cultural osmosis, they'd be like, oh, Klingon! But they redesigned it so people would be like, oh, Klingon, But I can't help but feeling with a lot of this that this is things we've seen before. It's, okay, a galactic war. Deep Space Nine did it. We've seen Klingons countless times. We've seen some of these sorts of characters before. Yet another Vulcan-type character. And it doesn't feel particularly fresh. And the premise doesn't really offer up a whole lot that's all of that exciting. Let me compare it for a moment to a show that was on the Sci-Fi Channel and sadly was recently canceled, Dark Matter. Now, Dark Matter begins with the crew of a ship waking up out of stasis to have their memories completely erased. Nobody knows who they are. They all meet up, try and figure out what's going on, and their ship is on autopilot. They arrive at a planet. They go down to this planet, and the colonists of this planet are terrified that someone or some group called the Raza are going to come attack them because some mining conglomerate wants their planet and wants to kick them off the planet. So one of the crew members that has amnesia decides he wants to help these people, these colonists on this planet, and the other crew members are like, yeah, we're not so sure about that, but he convinces them that they should fight with these people. But then they discover they're able to recover some of these deleted files on the ship's computer to figure out who they are. Turns out they are the people the colonists fear. They're all criminals on the run who are basically acting as soldiers of fortune for corporations in this sort of intergalactic cyberpunk type story. And there's the mystery of who they are, of what's going on in the world, the politics of the world. And watching the first 3 episodes of this low-budget Sci-Fi Channel show that ended up being canceled after 3 seasons, I was far more invested in the characters, and not only the characters, but the premise of the show after those 3 episodes than with Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek is handicapped by the fact that whether or not they're going for a different tone, it's still a Star Trek show, and they fall back on a certain amount of formula. You know the scenario, the overall scenario. Because they made it a prequel, you know who the Klingons are. It's not really surprising. Early on in the first episode, they encounter something, and it's jamming our sensors, and it's like, shrug, it's a cloaking device, duh. Of course. In the third episode, they're attempting to develop a technology. I won't go into what it is because I don't want to really give a lot of spoilers in this episode. But having them describe this technology and knowing the other series set further ahead in the future, unless there's some weird timeline thing with this show, which apparently they're not doing, but I don't entirely believe them just yet, you can hear the technology described and go, well, their attempt to develop that technology will fail because that technology does not exist in the future Star Trek series. The entire Star Trek series would be completely different. Incidentally, just not to give anything away, but the technology they're trying to develop in Star Trek sounds pretty much identical to something in dark matter, and they even use a certain word when describing it. At any rate, the overall premise offers up nothing new in terms of world building and interesting aliens and things like that. Does it really shake up the overall Star Trek formula? Somewhat. However, in these first few episodes, it focuses on a character named Michael Burnham. And it would seem led to believe that she is going to be the central character of the series. And unlike previous Star Trek series, rather than being episodic, having a different story every episode, it's going to be serialized. So with this serialized show, much rests on this Michael Burnham character and whether or not we find her interesting, as many of these side characters have yet to be developed, and we don't know if we'll ever have episodes from their perspective. Now, I'm personally ambivalent towards this character. I think she's going to be rather polarizing. My primary concern is that she's set up as a semi-Vulcan character. Even though she's human, she was raised on Vulcan, trained in Vulcan schools. With that, in previous incarnations, you have that character archetype, but they're typically, other than having their own occasional episodes, not the central character for a reason. And the reason is the stoic, logical, unemotional character tends not to be all that great for drama. Just like some people talk about, well, what if Hermione had been the central character of the Harry Potter series? Now, I like Hermione a lot as a character, but the know-it-all who can just use her brain to get out of every problem diffuses a lot of the plot tension by just being too clever for the plot. Somebody who's not quite as smart and who's going to make mistakes, like Harry Potter, simply makes a better protagonist because they're not as good. Now, of course, you could argue that Hermione has other flaws and that the story dynamics would just shape itself to be all about those flaws, but I'm not going to go into a long and detailed explanation why I don't think Hermione would make a good central character for that series. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. Certain characters, they have character archetypes are not really meant to be protagonists. And so far, this character, while not completely stoic, in fact, she did something incredibly stupid and entirely against what she said needed to be done in that episode. I'm not going to spoil what that is. She made an incredibly stupid mistake, or actually several incredibly stupid mistakes in the second episode. But a character who screws up and a character who's actually interesting are different things. And I'm not entirely sold on this character, and I would personally like to see future episodes be from different perspectives. That remains to be seen whether or not that's going to happen. But whether or not this character can carry this show, I'm not quite certain about. I think the actress is good. I don't have a problem in that regard, but just the sort of character archetype, again, it really depends on where they're going to go with the rest of the series. But because of all these things holding it back, because it seems overly familiar, nothing really super exciting introduced as a shake up to the premise, and a character that is not super interesting to really pull the show out of the quagmire of all those other factors. It leads to an overall review of meh. I'm kind of underwhelmed. So I'm not going to rant anymore. That's my review of the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. Interested in hearing other people's opinions in the comments section, and have a good whatever time it is.